we go. So today we are going to first talk about the P2P process and where we are in that for today. Then we're going to talk about how requisitions and confirming orders become actual orders. So we'll take a look at those two different processes. They're not too different, but I still want to go over them. Then I'm going to do an orders demo. I have a little bit of a agenda to go over on there so I can show you everything there is to show you with orders. And then just like last time, we're going to end with some real life issue review and talk about the answers to those questions together. So as a reminder, this is the P2P process, starting with requisitions, which is that request to purchase something, then orders, which is what we're talking about today. And this is where that request to purchase something has been fully approved and you are able to generate an order. And when I say you're able to generate an order, end users are able to see the generated order that takes place after it goes through the approval flow. And then Thursday, as I said, we'll talk about the final step in the P2P process, which is receiving. So as I said, when we went over the agenda, I want to first talk about requisition to order process and what that looks like. So last time we talked about the requisition process and how that's a couple of steps as well. But there's also a process that goes along with the order creation. So first, after a requisition is submitted, the end user will then wait for that requisition to go through the approval flow. It really depends on what their setup is how many people need to approve. And then once that requisition is approved and goes through all the approvals, an order is created. When it is a requisition, the supplier is notified. So they're sent an email after this order has been created that says, hey, you have a new order. Now, this is only for those suppliers that receive electronic notifications from the system. As you may or may not know, there are some that don't receive that notification or choose not to be notified. And then that way there's a last approval letting the requester know, hey, this supplier doesn't want to receive notifications, so you're going to have to notify them. But if they are set up to receive those electronic notifications, they would then receive notification of the order and they can go into their account and acknowledge that order and do a couple more things, especially if it's a P card order. So let's talk about the confirming order to order process, which is just as I mentioned, just a little bit different. So once the confirming order is submitted, and remember last week we talked about the two different places you can go to create a requisition as opposed to a confirming order and what the difference is between those. And a confirming order is really something that is put into the system after a purchase has already been made. So it's really for documentation purposes. So once that confirming order is approved, because just like the requisition, the confirming order does need to go through the approval process. After that's approved, the confirming order is created, and then this is the step that's different on the confirming order process. The supplier is not notified by email that they have received a new order. The reason for that is because a lot of the times when you are putting in a confirming order as an end user, it's something that you have already purchased or something the vendor has already provided, so we don't want them to fill the order a second time, so they're not notified. However, they are still able to access that order in their account. So they can still go in and see it. They just won't be notified that they have a new order. So that's the big difference between the order process, between requisitions and confirming orders. Are there any questions about that before I move on? Okay. So like I said, this is a shorter topic than our requisitions and receipts. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of an orders demo. So I'm going to stop sharing this. And I'm going to start sharing the UAT environment. So I think, let me look at my screen preview and make sure you all can see what I'm seeing. Yes. Okay. So a couple things I want to talk about with regards to orders. Let me move my agenda over here so it doesn't block you. So first of all, I want to show you the change order process. So change orders happen when something needs to be changed on the order, hence the name change order. So let's say an end user might need to go in and increase the quantity on something or even change the price because they put in the price wrong. They would need to create a change order. You'll also hear it referred to in the new platform as an amendment. So let's go in and go to Browse Orders. And hopefully UAT will be nice to me today. And I'm going to filter by my orders so I don't mess up anyone else's testing. Okay, so here's a list of my orders. You can see that the only thing you need to do, or excuse me, the end user needs to do is find the order that they want to do a change order on and click on that ID or the purchase order number. So I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to do this particular order. So this brings up the order just like you would when you would go to procurement, browse orders. And then in order to create a change order, you do it here at the top of the screen. So you see the create receipt button, which we'll talk about on Thursday, but today we're going to be focused on the change order button. Before I go any further, I know that you all are our new specialists, but I did just want to mention that in the legacy platform, and you might hear end users say this, the change order takes place from the requisition. So this is a big change in the new platform that now the change order takes place from the purchase order. So you might get an end user that says, okay, I'm on the requisition and I don't see where I can go to create that change order. But what I tell a lot of end users to help them remember is if you don't see that button at the top, you're probably in the requisition, which you can see here. So I'm going to click close. And it's not a big deal if they go to the requisition first. It's just they will be delayed just a moment and before they are able to see that change order button because they're in the wrong place. So again, it used to start from the requisition and now it starts from the purchase order. So when we click on the change order button, what happens is a new requisition number is created, but it's still attached to that PO number because you are, or excuse me, I should say the end user is making a change order to that order, meaning they're making some type of change, and any type of change in the new platform needs to go through the approval flow. So the end user will see this significant change request, but it's not something that they can change because for right now, especially as we continue to get used to the new platform, every change to any order is considered a significant change. So that is always going to be yes, and unfortunately it's not something for right now the end users can change. They'll then see the amendment number, meaning that this is the number of the amendment that has been made to this particular order. So this is the first change order for this order, which is why we're seeing the number 1 here. Then the end user will come to 2 fields where they can input some information. So the first one is the change type, and they can select as many or as few as they need to. So we're gonna do a change in existing items quantity or price. And then they also have the option to put in a description of changes here. It's not a required field, but in training for them, I highly recommend that they utilize this field because it's a really good place to document what exactly is being changed. I'll show you in a second where you can go to see what has been changed. If the end user asks, I want to see exactly what the system shows, but this is nice because it's kind of a summary of the description of changes that they're making. So I'm going to say, change order 1 to increase the quantity, it's quantity, from 1 to 10. So I see changing the quantity from 1 to 10, and then I can go ahead and click the Save button. And then basically it opens up the rest of the requisition and you can go in and change whatever needs to be changed. So a lot of the times our end users might say, okay, so after I hit save, I change what I need to change. Absolutely, but I always encourage them to hit save after they fill out the change order information so you can make sure that's captured. So then we can scroll down. And if they're wondering, okay, well, how do I make a change to the line item? All they need to do is click on that pencil icon. And remember, we're increasing ours from 1 to 10. Make any changes that they need to, and then save and close. And then after they've made all the changes that they need to, they would just submit for approval. And when they're doing a change order, it does go back through the entire approval process. It starts from the beginning, and that's not something that can currently be changed because, as we talked about, that significant change request is set to yes for right now until everybody gets more familiar with the system. So now I know I told you that we would take a look at where we can go to view the actual changes that have been made to an order in addition to what we're seeing right here. So if they want to, the end user wants to take a look at what the system is showing, we can absolutely do that. So we're going to go to Browse Orders. And I have set up one of these for you already. People have done a lot of testing since I've been in here, which is good. So I selected the order, and then when you want to see exactly what has been changed, and as a side note, you can see that this does have a change order because of the -1. That will change to -2, -3 if there were subsequent change orders in addition to the one for this particular order. But if they want to see exactly what the system is showing that was changed, they would look on this left navigation and go down to Amendment Log. And once they click on that, it not only gives them the change types that were selected by the requester, but it also gives a description of the changes, which is why it's so important for the end users to utilize that field. And then it also gives you a details box where you can see exactly what has changed. And those are in 4 different areas. I think also that they're looking on expanding this so that we can really see exactly what has been changed in all the areas. But for right now, it's header, addresses, items, and allocations. So here it's showing that my rec total amount has changed from 382 to 768. If there is an address change, you can see the address from and then the address to. So you can see what that has been changed to. Items, it also shows you if there was a quantity change, the quantity from and quantity to. If the amount has changed based on that quantity, it puts that here. If the price has changed, it would say yes, but here it hasn't. We just increased the quantity. So it has amount from and amount to. And then we can also click on allocations and see what allocations have been changed. So here is the previous version allocation, and then you can see the amendment allocation. I don't remember what I changed on here. Okay, I changed the fiscal year on here from 23 to 24. So in case any end users are saying, okay, in addition to what the requester has put in, I want to see exactly what the system is showing has changed, that's where you can go to do that. So another question that comes up sometimes is how can you tell if an order has an amendment or a change order to it? So we talked about that -1, but let's say that you don't know that the -1 exists. So how do you know that there is another order in place? So we're going to come down to these 2 orders because you can see that this is the original order. And then this is the amendment because of that -1. This is the change order. So that's the most recent. But let's say that the end user navigated to this PO first. And they're wondering, okay, I'm trying to create a requisition, but I don't see that change order button. I'm trying to create a change order, but I don't see that change order button. And I know I'm on the PO. But they can look here and see that this order has been amended. So that means that there is a newer version with the changes. If for some reason they don't see that here, they can always scroll over and there is an orders amendment box, and it lets them know here is the original order, which was the one we're currently on, and then here's the amendment number. So then that way they can see, okay, the reason I'm not seeing the change order button is because I'm actually not starting from the most recent version of this order. So then now you can see that they do have that change order button. So just something that has come up a lot is people saying, I don't have that change order button. I don't know if an amendment has been created. Also, I want to talk a little bit about canceling an order. So last week we talked about canceling a requisition and what that means, but canceling an order is a little bit more in depth. So if we go to browse orders, I'm going to pick, I don't think I have this filtered. I'm going to filter it again so I don't cancel someone's test order. So now you can see, it brings up a list of the purchase orders where I am listed as a requester. And let's say this one is one that I need to delete, meaning that I need to delete the order. It's no longer needed. I'm going to cancel it, meaning that obviously the supplier is going to need to also be notified of this. So canceling a PO for the end users is a two-step process. So in addition to canceling the PO, which is right next to the change order button, they also need to send the cancel PO. So as soon as they click that cancel PO button, this send cancel PO screen will pop up, and this is information that they need to fill in. So first, they have the ability to select themselves from the dropdown. I'm not sure why it doesn't default to them as the end user, but they need to select themselves. And then they need to select who it's going to be sent to. So for this particular order, there is no supplier contact listed. So what happens is when there is a company listed on here, it brings up who the supplier contacts are, and then you can select them from the dropdown. If for some reason there is no supplier contact listed, the end user would just need to click on no supplier contact, and then they can click on send and close. When they're sending and closing, it means that the supplier is getting a notification that this order has been canceled. They will need to click that send and close button. And once that happens, the end user can then, just to double check, scroll to the right and see that the status of this order has been changed to canceled. Any questions about canceling an order? I will say, I think that even though you can see canceled orders in your list of orders from your browse orders page, you cannot undo that cancellation. So just like the requisition and canceling the requisition before it's been submitted or while it's in the approval process, you can't undo that. It's the same thing with canceling orders. Okay, so the other question that we get a lot and have been getting a lot is, my supplier said that they did not receive notification of an order. Real easy way to check on that. Let me make sure that this order has one. Let's see. I want to find one where I can show you the history of PO sent. And I might actually pop over to production, since I'm not going to be doing anything in there but showing you this, so that you can see how to verify that. So an end user says, hey, our supplier is saying they didn't get this order. How do we know that they got it or they didn't get it? That's a confirming order, so that's not going to have one. That's a confirmation too. Darn, I'm selecting all the wrong ones. this should not be a confirmation. So all they would have to do then is and that one doesn't have it either. Gosh darn it. So normally, in order for them to check to see where the order has gone, they would scroll down to history of PO sent, and it will show you that it has been sent to the supplier. I'm going to look in here too and see if maybe it's just not putting that information on there. Yep, it is not there either. So there's a potential that maybe this vendor is a print vendor, meaning they're not receiving notifications through the platform. Let's go back to browse orders, and I'm going to find one. I'm set on being able to show you all this. I know I found some yesterday. Perfect. Here is one where you can see exactly where the PO was sent. So if somebody has a question, an end user about where the PO has gone, did the vendor actually receive it? I actually got one of these last week. All you need to do is navigate to the purchase order, and then it'll show you a history of PO sent, and it shows you the date and the time it was sent, who it was sent to, and then it even gives you the attachment that was included with that email. So you can kind of say, nope, they received it on this date at this time, it was sent to this person. And I think that the person that I helped with this was pretty surprised that they did receive it, and we even had an audit trail to show that. So that's how you can tell whether an order has been sent to the supplier. So finally, let's talk about locating an order, because this is another thing that we get a lot of questions about in the requisitions orders and receipts hypercare group. So we go to browse orders. There might be some times where somebody wants to see an EP number. So an EP is the prefix to a purchase order number from our previous platform. Now they are just PCOs and POs, but previously they were EPs as opposed to POs. So if they have an EP number and they're putting it in this keyword search and they can't find anything, the best place for them to put the EP number is actually in this internal code box, or external, excuse me, because that external code is basically the code that's pulling from the legacy platform. So I'm going to try to find one that has that EP number, so I can show you that it comes up pretty quickly. There's one. I don't know why it has that A after it. But they can absolutely still put it in the keyword search, but putting it in that external code field will help them find it quicker, because what happens is you'll see that it only comes up with 4 search results, and you can see that it is tied to that external code number. And here's probably the order that they're looking for. So this is the previous legacy system number, and this is the new PO number. I'm going to show you what happens when you put it in the keyword search. You're still able, I think you're still able to, it actually doesn't even show on this. So that's why I always recommend, if they have an EP number, that they put it in that external code field, because that's the best place for them to search. Normally what comes up are a whole bunch of search results, and then it's harder for the end user to find it. Also, there might be some end users that say, I have searched everywhere. I've used the external code field for the EP, or maybe they put a PCO number in here as well, which it can also do, and they can't find their order. So end users don't realize sometimes that we did have a cutoff for what orders were going to be transferred to the new platform. So that cutoff date is 2 years prior to, I think, October 2022. So if they have any orders that were created prior to October 2020, most likely that order is not going to be able to be searched in the new platform because there was a cutoff date for that, for those orders to be transferred into the new platform. However, they can still get a copy of that order, and all they need to do is go to the report center. And basically this report center will tie them back to all of that data from the previous platform that is older than that cutoff date. So kind of ignore all this stuff up here because they won't see that. But they do have the ability to run the 200 report. And when you open that, the end user can select their entity from the dropdown. They can select a specific order number that they're looking for. This would be the order that they've put in everywhere. You've helped them search for it, and you've determined that it's probably an older order that didn't get transferred to the new platform. So they would enter that order number here. Let me see if I can, I'll use their example and see if that works. And when they click run report, it will come up with the purchase order that they are looking for. So again, it's that 2-year cutoff date, anything, I think it's prior to October 2022. That might be a false order number, which is why we're not seeing that. And that's okay. Okay. Get out of this. And to get out of that report and resource center, they can hit return to portal, and that will take them back. So again, they have an EP number. It means that they're searching by a previous order number, and they can put that in the external code field. Best place for it to be searched. If they have already tried to search for the order, you've helped them, you're not seeing it, it's probably because it's an older order, and then that's when you'll want to direct them over to the report center to look for that information. Okay, so we've talked about change orders and where to view the changes and how to tell if an amendment or a change order has been created. We talked about canceling an order, and we talked about how to see where the PO was sent in case an end user is wondering about that. And then we just went over locating orders. So the current PO number, legacy platform PO number, or orders that have a date prior to that 2-year cutoff. And as I said, I believe it's October 2020, anything prior to that. So I am going to stop sharing for the demo. And I'm going to hop over. Oh, and I'm just seeing your questions. Sorry, I can't see questions on the chat when I'm presenting. Yes, change orders take place from the purchase order and not from the requisition. So you might get some folks that say, hey, they used to take place from the requisition. Absolutely did, but now it takes place from the change or from the order. So I'm going to start sharing my screen again. Let's go into our questions. So because I'm presenting, it's kind of tough to see the chat. So I will ask you to unmute if you want to answer these. So first question is, how do I know the supplier received my order? That's oh, I don't know why that says question 2. It should be 1. So how do you know the supplier received? How would you direct the end user when they ask this question? Oh, no worries, Tennille. I'm sorry. I didn't know that the browser won't let you use audio. So someone else, or Tennille, feel free to put it in the chat. What would you do in this case? Exactly. So Tennille's got it right. You would go to that purchase order history portion of the purchase order, which is on the header that we scrolled down to, and then you can see a history of who it was sent to. Okay, I need to cancel an order. How do I do that? Go back. Feel free to unmute yourself. Any takers?
I think Tennille said, can she answer? Sure.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't see that. Yes, sure, of course. Or anyone else, that's fine too. Whoever gets to it first. Man, Tennille, you're on top of it today. So she said, go to browse orders, select the order, select the cancel PO button. So select your name and who it's being sent to, and then click send and close. And cancel and send also works too. So good job to both Tennille and Linda. You guys are rocking it today. So next question is, how do I create a change order? And I'm going to change this one a little bit and say, where would you direct the end user to go if they wanted to create a change order? Again, feel free to unmute yourselves. Tennille, I know that you don't have audio, so don't worry about that. But if anyone else wants to be brave and unmute themselves, I promise I don't bite. Any takers?
Well, you definitely start at the order, not
There
the
you
requisition.
There you go. There you go. That's exactly what I was looking for, that you start at the order and not the requisition, because that is a big change. So my question numbers are out of order, I think, because I reordered them, so it would make more sense from a process standpoint. So just ignore that number. Is it a requirement that I include a description of the changes in the change order box? So an end user says, hey, I see that there is a required field, but then there's also a field that looks like it's not required where I need to put a description of the changes. Is that something that is required even though it's not marked that way?
Anybody?
Oh, let me check the chat. Correct. So you are right. It is not a requirement. However, it is strongly recommended that they put a description of their changes in that change order box, mostly so that they can document it and anybody else looking at it, or if they look at it down the line, can see exactly what has been changed. Why don't I have a change order button at the top of the order? We kind of talked about this a little bit. What would be a reason why they're not seeing that change order button at the top of the order?
Requisition.
Yes, they could be in a requisition. Absolutely. That is one of the answers I was looking for. Does anyone know the other one? Thank you, Miranda. So we only briefly talked about this, so I will happily give you the answer to this. So the other time that they're not going to see that change order button at the top of the order is, one, if they're on the requisition and not the order, like Miranda said, but two, if they're on an order that already has an amendment or a change order attached to it, they're not going to see that change order button. So that's when you want to take a look at that amendment box and see if there's a newer version of that order, because then that's where they would need to start the change order from. When I try searching for my order, I can't find it. What do I do? What would you, how would you handle this if somebody sent an email or called in and said they couldn't find their order? So first you might ask them, what's the order number? And if it starts with, ooh, I got a chat. Not a problem. So if somebody calls in and says, can't find my order, what do I do? Absolutely first ask them for the order number, because this will help you identify whether they're searching by a legacy order number or by a current system order number. And then if you get the current system order number and you're searching for it, or the legacy one and you still can't find it, that means that there is potentially, it's an older order that is not in the new platform, but can still be found by going to the report center and searching for it that way and doing a report that way. How can I search by EP number? So what would be the best place for them to put that EP number, if you remember the name of the field in under browse orders? What would be the best place for them to put that EP number? Anybody remember the name of that field? If not, that's okay. Oh, hold on, let me get, yes. Miranda and Linda got it. The external code field is where they want to put that EP number. That's where any legacy PO numbers go in order for the end user to get the best search results and find their new order number a little bit quicker. And those are all the questions. We only had 7 questions today as opposed to 10 for the requisitions, because like I said, the orders part of the 3-part process for P2P is probably the shortest to explain, just because there aren't as many nuances in the order process as there are in the requisitions and the receipts process. So what questions do you have for me that maybe I didn't go over, or you need some clarification on, or you've maybe heard were asked that we didn't talk about? What questions do you have? Nothing?
There is one I'm a little bit confused on, is that
Sure.
that confirming order piece. Because we've seen some purchase orders come through from the supplier who basically is asking, they may ask a question about the notification that they received, so they'll send it into the box. But some of them actually say they're confirming orders. So I guess what I'm confused about is, if they're not supposed to be receiving these notifications, why are they? Is there a process that the end user is not following or doing differently?
So what could be happening there is that when the end user goes to start that requisition, instead of selecting create confirming order, they're selecting create requisition. So that doesn't let the system or the vendor know that it's a confirming order. They would have to start it from a confirming order. So that is an end user error, where the supplier might say, like you said, hey, I already got this order, I've filled it. What is this? I don't see that it's a confirming order. That's because the end user most likely put it in as a regular requisition as opposed to a confirming order.
Great, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because what they're doing is, when they do that, they're putting in like all these notes in the comments, and it says it in the comments that it's a confirming order, but it's the path that they took. So instead of creating a requisition, they should have created a confirming order.
Exactly.
And in that way, they wouldn't have received the notification. Okay.
Yep, correct. They'll still be able to as the supplier, they'll still be able to access that order. They just wouldn't get a notification if that was done correctly and the requester had put in a confirming order as opposed to a requisition. We are struggling with that still. It's a change for the end users. So hopefully, and what we're hoping is that somebody in the approval flow would catch that. But obviously there are still some that eke through that were not done correctly. Great question.
This is Linda. I have a question.
Sure.
So if a vendor gets an email with an order confirmation, sorry about that, hold on a minute, with an order confirmation, and they say, well, I got this notification, but I don't know, what am I supposed to do with it? I said, well, it probably is just a notification. And they said, what do I do when I get into it? So they're asking that question.
So what I would tell them, I would direct them to their supplier training material, which shows them how to acknowledge orders or access orders.
Right.
And then if they still have questions about that, I would send them to our vendor support team in case they can help them further. Because yes, they're getting emails about being notified that you have a new order. So there's nothing they necessarily have to do, but they should, click on the link that is in that email, and then it will take them to that order, because the action on their part is to fill the order unless it's a confirming order. So that's where that is coming from. And then if there's, okay, well, I shouldn't be receiving this order, I'm not the correct person at my company to receive this, that's really when they need to talk to a vendor support specialist who can help them get the right contacts on their account.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, we actually can provide that information, Linda. I mean, we can look at the account, because typically vendor support doesn't necessarily provide that kind of guidance. They can, but typically we try to direct them, or at least inform them who the contacts are on the account, because we still have access to that information. But we do get those, Sarah, where, because it used to be Ariba, a lot of them had access, especially when you're dealing with a customer service center who processes all orders, right? And they may have had access to the Ariba account, but now they have access to Eva. And there's only certain contacts on that supplier account that may have access. Right. And I'm thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong, Miranda, what I'm thinking is we can look at the contacts on the account and let them know who the admin is, who could get them set up so that they can log in to acknowledge the order.
And then, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just made me think of something, is that you can also,
because I think that's the types of calls or issues that Linda may be getting. They're not sure. I mean, some of them probably aren't sure how to acknowledge it for sure, but a lot of them just don't have access to the system yet.
Right. And that's like,
because they never had to go into Eva itself to pick, to get the order.
Right. And it's not like we as the Eva team doesn't make the decision on who should get access or not. It needs to be whoever is their admin, main person on the account.
Right.
But let's say you are talking to a main person on the account, you can always go to the supplier training. And there was actually, there's a video about how they can access their orders. And then there's also a communication that I saved here that talks about how the suppliers can access their orders. So you can always direct them there as well.
So Linda, did that give you the answer to your question? Did that clear that up for you?
Well, I knew how to direct them to look up the orders, and I even, kind of walked them through that process, and I referred them to the tutorial. But they're asking, well, okay, now that I'm in it, what do I do? Oh. Well, for the most part, it's just informational.
That's their organization and how they process orders. We can't tell them how to do that.
Right, but they're asking that question like constantly. Well, I'm in it now. What do I do? I said, well, they just sent you the email as a notification of the order itself. So they're asking, what do I do when I get in it?
And Linda, that's when I would probably say, how each supplier handles order processing is up to them. So I would check with whoever handles order processing at your company, and they can talk to you about what to do with new orders that come in through EVA. Because then that way we were not telling them, here's what you need to do. And hopefully also not making them feel like we're pushing them off, because we're not. We don't have any, we can't tell them what their business process is.
So once they do log in as the supplier, Sarah, on their side, there's no particular action that they need to take?
I think that they can acknowledge orders, but I don't think it's something that's required. I'm not positive about that.
Gotcha.
I can check with Kim and Lakia about that, and I can send you guys the answer. That if they have any other additional steps after they log in.
Because I felt like I was brushing them off. I'm like, well, I think it's just informational. So it's really nothing that you need to do. But I want to make sure that I'm giving them correct information.
Absolutely. I don't blame you. Yeah, and you don't want to feel like you said, like you're brushing them off. So let me check with Lakia and Kim about that to see if there are any additional steps that they recommend that suppliers take. And I will, when I follow up with the links to the recordings, I'll put this question and answer in there.
Thank you.
What else do you have for me? Nothing? Well, if you think, thank you, Camille. Yeah, I got it cut. It's a little lighter than I was expecting, but it's summer, or about to be summer soon. So I'm like, we'll stick with it. We'll stick with it. If anybody thinks of anything in the meantime, please feel free to reach out to me. I am now on the 6th floor, but still here and available. Kind of probably going to be my last week doing some P2P stuff, including training you all wonderful people, because I would not leave you in the lurch. But if you think of anything, don't be scared to reach out to me even after this week. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. And just like last time, I will send a follow-up after today. I'll probably send it out tomorrow with the recordings so you can access them along with any outstanding questions. And I will give you about, 37 minutes back of your time. Like I said, this is a short one. We'll end with probably the most in-depth one, which is our receiving.
Yeah, I was going to say we get the break today because tomorrow is the biggie.
That's the one that has the most questions attached to it. When I'm going through and looking for questions and I bring them up, like anything that has change order in it, it's always receiving stuff. So I was even having problems finding questions to pull for you guys today. So it will be the big one. Well, thank you all so much. And thank you for asking such great questions and answering the questions that we went over. I really do appreciate it. And I will see you all on Thursday. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Sarah. Have a good one. Take care now.